Welcome to the ASC Clubhouse Conversations. I'm your host, Patrick Cady, ASC, and today I am very pleased to talk with cinematographer Kasper Tuxen, DFF, about his work on the film Sentimental Value. Kasper, thank you for joining us and joining me.
Thank you, Patrick. An honor.
Um, Watched the movie yesterday and loved it. I wanted to start by asking, did you work with Joaquin, the director, before the worst person in the world, or was that your first time
No,
together?
that was our first collaboration. I worked with his editor, Olivier, who's a fellow Dane,
Uh-huh.
on two projects. Or actually, we did Beginners, Mike Mills' film
Uh-huh.
together. That was our first collaboration, and then in between Worst Person and Sentimental Value, Olivier was also part of the editorial team on The Apprentice, the Donald Trump biopic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which got a lot of notice and I think looked great. Um, so because it's not your first film together, was there, what's your collaboration like in early stages, and was there anything different? Because did you already have a shorthand from having done another feature before?
We did. We definitely built on top of that, and what was different was Worst Person in the World actually was going to be shot by the director of photography Jakob Ihre, who shot everything before that with Joachim.
Right.
Joachim crushed his knee on a ski accident, and that postponed Worst Person
Oh,
uh, in the first place. And I think it that made Jakob unavailable, and so I got the chance, and so they'd started prep already when Joachim was literally back on his feet. He'd already prepped the film a bit, so I um I felt that he'd already like taken some decisions on how to shoot certain scenes, whereas Sentimental Value, we talked about it already when it was a post-it note on him and Eskil's office. And funny enough, I'd been since Worst Person, I really in many ways it was an achievement for me. I'm so proud of the film, but it was also having studied film cinematography in film school from 99 to '03. It was actually the first time I got to shoot a film on celluloid. And so having that box checked off and also having reconnected with the material, it really made me excited about shooting film. So I started working on a 16 millimeter project with my own family,
oh, cool.
unaware of what was going on in the writer's room.
Oh, how
So,
amazing.
when we started talking, I could show him some of my own family stuff, and a little of it is still in the film, but Joachim was kind and super inspired by the stuff that I'd done. So I felt like, and some of it was written into the script, so I felt much more part of the beginning of Sentimental Value than I did with Worst Person.
Oh, what an amazing experience. So it's not,
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that happens in great when you go to a really fun film school or a film school with other students that you like collaborating with. There's this really amazing thing that happens where you kind of workshop each other's scripts and then you work on each other's films, and you end up having that kind of influence, and that tends to go away in the professional world, which I think is a sad thing. So it sounds like you and Joaquin really have a, like, you were able to bring that back.
Yes, totally. And we did and that, I prepped for this is the longest production I've been a part of on a feature film. We had 5 months of prep and 3 months of shooting.
Nice.
So yeah, I was like he believes in prep, and it was hard on family. I did feel a little like Stellan's character sometimes like
Right.
abandoned my family in the process of making this film, but it also allowed us to go really deep and to test on multiple stages of pre-production to close in on how we would do things.
And how much of that is shooting footage versus mapping out the script? Like, kind of, what's the ebb and flow of that prep like when it's that long for you?
Well, I mean, I've first mountain to climb was, of course, finding the house.
Right.
which happened simultaneously, sort of with me prepping for The Apprentice, which was a film that had moved. I knew for a while when Joachim's film was going to sit in, in the calendar, but then The
Right.
Apprentice film kept moving because it was difficult to get made, so it pushed itself right up to the
Ooh.
beginning of Joachim's film. So we found the house, you know, I think just before I started prepping The Apprentice.
Oh my gosh. And it's
September.
such a good house. I mean,
It's amazing. No,
yeah.
we when we went there together, and it felt like it both had Tarkovsky, like the house in the beginning of Mirror,
Yeah.
but also has Villa Villacula, which is where Pippi Longstocking lives. So it has like it's both like art and for kids somehow.
Right. Right.
Uh,
And was the stove thing always written into the script? Was that
yes.
always there? So
Yeah,
you had
yeah,
to
the
make sure you
listening in through the
believe
yeah.
that construction and yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I
And
loved,
Joachim knew the house from before.
oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, but it I mean we looked at I was looking at 30 houses, and I think he'd looked at 100 more, and then when we got there it was, yeah, he knew, like he'd been there before. He actually shot the ending of Oslo August 31st
Oh,
in
huh.
the same house, but it was reconfigured somehow. So when he walked around I could see it on him already, like seeing the script in the room, and especially seeing the final scene of Gustav's film, right? So
Yeah.
he was mapping that out. Looking back at it, I think he found the shot on that first walk,
Oh,
like
that's
how
amazing.
Gustav would do that scene. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is I kind of feel like if I walked through the front door, I would know where to go
Hmm.
and I would know how to walk the loop that is the hallway like that and the setup of escaping out the back door, which then Nora uses to get out when her dad is there and all that stuff. Like
Hmm.
the film is so smart about very subtly planting things that then the audience uses later. Um, and so you don't have to over explain anything. And that I thought was all you can sense that prep. You can sense the length of time of the prep because I don't get the sense that I'm looking at any obvious slash first ideas. I feel like I'm looking at like the 10th idea someone got when they were brushing their teeth or something like, which is to me is like peak filmmaking. Was there something that you guys figured out really early that stayed, and then was there? I'm imagining there's some things that changed right before.
Um, no, I mean, like I said, one of the early things was Joachim, like he couldn't, agree to the house before he could see Gustav's film realized in there. So I think that was the first thing, and that barely changed. And so
That's
that
cool.
also gave me a lot of prep time too when we then copied the actual house on stage to do that piece.
Yeah.
Um, but no, but Joachim's process, like I said, we had a lot of prep time, is like really we go through every scene. We do floor plans and shooting boards for every scene. And he rehearses, you know, anything above half page, he would rehearse with the actors. And
Oh,
as much
great.
as I could, I was allowed to be a part of it. So I got into the emotional core, everything that's between the lines in the script. And one of my favorite things on a film is just to be there listening to, the notes and the discussions about the scenes it just informs me so much on what, yeah, what we're trying to communicate and yeah. So that's most of the prep is scouting, planning for the locations, and then being a part of the actors' rehearsals.
And Joachim and Renata, am I pronouncing her name correctly? And you had already worked together before, so that must have helped her
Yeah.
feel comfortable trusting you with her her performance. Well, we can jump right into the first clip, which is stage fright, which kind of that might be a good transition into because
Mhm.
you're having to portray this intimacy with an an actor who's You really think she might just ditch the whole thing and go out into the alley if if someone looks at her wrong? She's like a thoroughbred racehorse that maybe doesn't want to go out in front of the crowd. So what were the initial conversations about this, and then how did you all land at this blocking, which is also deceptive, like the backstage, front stage of it all?
Well, in prep, of course, behind the scenes on a theater is not too far from behind the scenes on a movie set. So we knew something about it, but we spent a handful of nights watching shows, and we were allowed on the National Theater stage to be, you know, like watch shows from the side stage, from um, the I can't remember the English word for what
Oh, the wings, I think is what we would call
the
it.
wings, and whoever helps with the lines, where all the technicians are seated, like all that. Like we had different perspectives on a show to be informed, and yeah, so to make it as real as possible and true to the location. Also, Renata used to work there, so
Funny.
like it's home. What do you say? It's home ground, or it's home. Yeah, so we had access, and we walked around and boarded it basically.
And lighting wise, what were your challenges, especially in the backstage of it all?
Well, yeah, there's that. There's like the blue light is, I guess, is code for these theaters. So we agreed that we would follow that, and I mean the whole logistics of the theater is, there's like I don't know how many plays they circle through a week or a month, and we shot there for 7 days in total with the two shows, all this fright, and Rachel Kemp coming there later in the film. So that was probably the most consistent shooting plan when we went into the theater. But that took a lot of planning because we'd even, bringing in the ladders, lighting that is very, very little time in like off hours to, have one show taken down. We bring in our stuff, try to, aim the lights right and place the blue lights and have them sitting for like 4 weeks until we then finally it fits our schedule and we come in and do the in and out each day with
Oh.
our show.
So yeah, you had to preload the stage portion with that crew and then come
Yes,
back when there was a gap.
yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And well, and then of course it's the I guess if we wanted to stay true to, we start up in the pretty like cynical white lights of the wardrobe area, and then like this darker blue sides stage, and then using the actual lights from the theater for the plays,
Yeah.
which was our only option. There's some green. Levy, my gaffer, brought a few of them to a test that we did months before, just to make sure that they didn't flicker and that the green was solvable. The green in the theater lights was solvable in the grade.
Right. You sent a little note just before we started talking about the film stocks, and I think the
Mhm.
note said all of them.
Kind of. No, I mean, yeah, this was 500T for
Right.
sure. I love that stock in a way. I like it so much. Maybe the whole film could have been shot on it, but I like shallow depth of field when it's needed, and shooting 500T in the summer in Oslo would just I think having exact grain and stock consistency is second to actually seeing something through the viewfinder. Like it would take so
Yeah.
much ND to insist on 500T throughout. So that's why I choose stock for practical reasons. Like I've shot 50D, we shot 250D as well.
Yeah.
And then when we go later into the historical parts, we played even more with black and white and pushing and pulling and processes.
Yeah, really beautiful. I think the only times I've been able to stick with one consistent stock like that was using Panavision cameras because then you
Yeah,
can use ratans behind the lens so the poor operators aren't trying to see through,
yeah, yeah.
welding goggles.
Yeah, yeah. No, but that is so smart. We don't Cam, I love those cameras also
Yeah.
because we really even more so on than on worst person, we've the contemporary part of our film is mainly a handheld camera.
Yeah.
So the Aerocam Lite was, I mean, we Joachim and I talk about it as the greatest machine ever invented, and it's such a, I mean, we even decorated it. Joachim's not a big fan of making a lookbook for specific light scenarios or references, but it was more like an attitude. And one of the first pages was George Harrison's hand-painted guitar. And so I surprised him on our day one with stickers. I couldn't actually hand paint the LT, but I
Right.
made hand painted stickers that we put on the mags and the camera so that the it was our tribute to George Harrison, but also just every day, even when the actors saw it, they would smile because it's a childish, it's a little bit Villa Villa Kula, but it's also, Pippi Longstocking's home, but it's also an invitation to be more playful and colorful. And I think that's what changed since Worst Person. We have a more saturated film and we're a little loose, a little less precious with camera moves and so yeah, it was reflected in the coloring, hand coloring of the camera that we personally did, yeah.
I think you're touching on something super important, especially for young filmmakers who finally like haven't had the chance to come up in film and then finally get the chance to work in it, to still remember that it's a beautiful tool. I agree with you. Like it's the most beautiful sewing machines in the world are film cameras. But at the same time, they are a tool for your ideas, and the more you can make them a little less precious and approachable, I think it makes a big difference. I think that inciting that sense of play, now the actors can relax around it, the crew can relax around it. Everyone knows that like you're there to grab that one magical take. And if you have three that are ridiculous before you get there, it's still worth it to have those
Right.
three. Yeah.
No, an anecdote that Joachim told me from Louder Than Bombs was Gabriel Byrne, who he loves, but he had this thing, and I don't know if I can do this. Can you bleep me or my fingers? But he would go like this to the camera. Like he had like this kind of love-hate relationship with the camera, and I I don't know. I want the camera to be the safest place
Yeah.
for the actors. And so maybe subconsciously that was part of like, the signaling as well. Like and that's, just in the actual hand painting of the body, but also like my whole mentality and Joachim's as well is that having the actors step in front of the camera they should just feel 100% supported.
Yeah, that's huge. And that also affects like do you have a pretty strong opinion about how bad something has to be for you to go back to go in on between takes one and two and adjust the light, or are you kind of always putzing
Really
or
depends. It depends but I, it would only be for storytelling reasons or like strong continuity problems or matters that I know Joachim would appreciate me to
right, right.
break a flow with only like real problems like and I think we're in the vein of being more loose and more George Harrison, which has nothing to do with imperfections, but I'm getting at like we're inviting imperfections. I think I there's a few things I don't like, and it's lighting that is too precious, or it's performance that is too self-aware or vain, or at least if it's in the performance, of course that's the thing. But if you feel an actor being vain or insecure, like it breaks performance, then the illusion is broken for me. Do you know what I mean?
Very much. Yeah.
Um,
And you, I mean, you all pull off something in this movie, which is great, which is Elle Fanning at a certain point. And my daughter and I couldn't help but say something as it was happening. I was like, oh my God, she's so good to be this just bad enough to be bad in this
Right,
moment.
right,
Like
right,
what a
right.
great actor. Like sh and it's something and it's that like she seems like you can see her thinking about what she's going to do instead of being in the moment.
Mhm.
And and suddenly you're watching it and you're like, "Wait a minute, this is not good and everything I've been seeing has been so good until now." Um and I think some of what there's a scene, and we'll talk about it next, but there's a scene that sets up that this director is very talented and able to get these amazing performances. And so you show us this in this retrospective, and there's this Anna train sequence,
Mhm.
which we then find out that the young girl is actually his a younger version of his daughter, played by Agnes, right? And
Mhm.
um, and the sequence is phenomenal. So you start laying down a couple things. One is this director, and now you're being a cinematographer for a fictional director inside a movie for another director, and
But
and
he's still very much Joachim Trier somehow,
right,
you know.
exactly.
Somehow, yeah, yeah.
But the palette's a little different. Like you sense a different time period because of I don't know if it was the approaching the coloring or if it was in the stock itself or just the nature of the brown of the grass, but you do sense a slightly different time period. Um, and it's this incredible oneer. But like right in here, like the way the shadows are crushed and the way those greens are going and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about on top of this amazing performance and the
The
fact that
butterfly.
moving like yeah, how did this sequence come about?
All right, yeah. So, no, we spend a lot of time discussing what what filmmakers was Gustav Borg looking up to, and when was this made, and so you know. So we decided that he's a Tarkovsky fan, and now that we do a lot of handheld in our contemporary time, flexing Joachim's mise en scène muscle here. Or no, that's I prefer not to put it like that because I don't think there's any show offy about Joachim, but me really admiring how Joachim experiencing him on Worst Person, how he gets excited about setting up a dolly shot. That was something that was a skill we put more into the work of Gustav Borg. So
Oh,
like
smart.
deciding that both these films were oneers. There's a scene that was cut out. There was another one as well, with the boy that doesn't make it to the train. But crafting these, deciding on, you know, Gustav would use like a Cook Varital zoom, which I read somewhere at some point Tarkovsky used as well, but like at least like a vintage zoom, and we bleached bypass the neck, to because like in the 90s, like there's a lot of World War II movies that would do that to give more
Yeah.
grain and texture. So and
And
then
the way it blocks up the shadows, but you
exactly, yeah,
and the
yeah.
subtle curve to them.
And just committing, like crafting the shot and finding the right stretch on the railroad, and the violet, like the fact that once, because we hung the slider with the remote head in the train, and then once the train started going, like, there's no suspensions or whatever system there is in a train. So like the whole rocking, and I think it's the actual sound from the train that's used, which
Oh
is
my.
so violent, and which, shooting the first take, which is like, this is just so right. This the violent sound and the shaking of the camera is, exactly how it should be. Also, so in the middle of something quite technical that needs to succeed with, soldiers, car, train starting, extras and everything, and a fairly complicated camera move, like our actress here was just like nailing it at every take, and yeah, it was just it's yeah. We
Yeah,
were happy when we
she's
succeeded.
incredible.
I don't know if you saw the little butterfly, but that was also a part of like, Johan, our props guy would like, put like a little butterfly that flew around on in the cabin on
Oh my God. So that's not CG, it's a real
no.
butterfly.
Yeah, yeah.
And the shot itself isn't CG, like there'd be. you would not be blamed if this was a a match between two different things in different locations.
Right. No, it isn't, and it's not a seamless cut either. It's like one of the two last takes, I believe.
Oh my God, it's incredible. And yeah, that when it goes over the trestle and you feel the camera do that little move, it all feels right. And yes, her performance is shockingly great.
Mm.
And it's such a good setup for then we're just like um Rachel Kemp, the character played by Elle Fanning, we're like her in that like, oh my gosh, this filmmaker is a really good filmmaker. And you've done it with one shot, which is no small feat. So like I was so impressed by all the heavy lifting the perfect execution of this one scene does, because now we buy any praise Gustav has the character um has, or why he might be so self-centered as to not be a great dad at times, because this is the reward for him, right? To make something this strong. And so now you've set this, like you've driven this point home so well, the rest of the film can live on it. Now, when you're prepping, do you understand like how ridiculously important that one shot is?
I Yeah, I think so. I mean, Joachim's probably a little more aware of it than me, but I guess it's more like how do we how do we solve it and how do
Right.
we still make space for, in something so technical where everything still relies on her close-up. Like how do
Yeah.
we make that, stage something safe for her and where there's room for, making mistakes still and stuff. But it also sent me back to because my entry to the film industry was as a child actor. When I was 13,
No way.
I was in a movie and I did a couple of roles in my juvenile teenage years,
Yeah.
which was an experience. The first experience was, of course, the reason why I wanted to become a filmmaker, and that was a film shot on 16 mil in 91 with no video tab. So my experience as an actor in front of the camera was everybody would ask the DP who also operated the camera, after a take how it was. So like I was like that's the guy I want to be. And also he was a Jakob Banke Olesen was his name. He was or is his name. He was a very extremely warm, charismatic man. And so the relationship between the camera is something that now I'm on the other side, of course, but that experience is what I want to pass on. And that's I think, the operator and the performer is where it's happening, right? The film is
It's such a
happening.
ballet. One of the first movies I
Such a
operated, and I felt so connected to the performances.
right, and a privileged place to be, and also comes with great responsibility. But it's just like that's everything. All the 5 months of prep, like every day for me is the take, and then
Yeah.
having on top of that the purr of the 35 millimeter running
The
close
cat
to
on
your
your
ear.
shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like not only is it you everybody has the focus, and we everybody, even though it's a pretty silent camera, there's so much focus and concentration that everybody knows now we're making it, and everybody has to be on their toes. But it also like, yeah, just almost like sense of focus in my body as an operator, and then just having the privilege of deciding exactly how much of this performance and then how do I connect with the performer throughout the scene is yeah, my favorite thing.
Well, and there's also that very special thing in film where when you're operating, you have the best seat in the house because you're the one person seeing it through the lens for the first time.
Yeah,
And if you're the cinematographer, you can imagine how that's getting laid into the film too from your tests and everything. So you have this really interesting molecular connection to what you're
right.
framing.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
And also
nobody.
like I really I'm a fairly emotional guy, and so I let myself cry if I'm taken by the scene, which I am usually. And so I also think that Joachim appreciates this engagement, that it's uh yeah, I don't know if that's the right word, but like at least my how I live, in the take, and what I feel in the take is as an indicator of how it came through.
I mean, what a gift for Joachim and the cast to know that you're invested, like you're truly invested as much as they are. I mean, that's what they're looking for in a collaborator, and you're going to help them. And because of that investment, you're going to make shot choices based on performance and not on what's going to look cool, right?
Right.
Which I think is a big mistake.
Right.
Um, well, let's talk a little bit. Let's look at the Dalvel Beach. I'm hoping I'm
Right.
pronouncing that right. Um, and it's a combination of a big, and you were saying that originally you had to light for a much larger sequence, and I do love the night lighting of it, but I also love the pre-dawn, what did you call it, blue hour of it all.
Yeah, yeah. We had on Worst Person in the World, we had quite a few like transitional light sequences. Like there's the I don't know if you remember, but she leaves the cartoon release of her then boyfriend to have like a bluesy moment overlooking the city, and then
Oh,
crashing a
right.
wedding party where she stays all till sunrise next morning.
Yeah.
This one was in the script, and what we shot was longer, but it was like, yeah, this whole thing of night to sunrise. And the challenges were for the non-night stuff was that the sun was setting where we wanted it to rise.
Mm.
So we had to do everything. We shot over three sort of split days, and so we would have to do everything in reverse. When the in the late afternoon we would do the end of
Leaving with the horse first,
and
and
then
then
we'd have to,
yeah.
yeah, work backwards, while the tide and ebb was a big factor because those sometimes is like a mile wide. And we had one evening was a Lost in La Mancha moment where it's like, the lens boxes, the tents, and everything had to be rushed to safety. And then I just felt, having this natural, and that's actually the moon. We had the full
I mean,
moon.
come on.
Yeah,
And
no, it was also like a pinch me moment, but the night I felt like in the reality we were chasing, I was like, I don't want to do blue moonlight on this
right.
beach. And I think there's something we had like Joachim was like, well, let's do it Fellini. Why, like let's have like, lights that are obvious in some sort, like, feel like the presence of the light. We also have they're leaving like the film world to actually have a human conversation. So all those little sparkly, glittery lights that we have in the beginning of the sequence was like the motivation to send light all the way to what they're escaping and while they're getting closer to the water. So that was the challenge to have that feel like it extended all the way to the water. And so yeah, Livia and it was one of my biggest concerns in prep, and I think that's the first, really like time spent with Livia's. And then actually one thing we did, which I started doing then, is for for all scouts, I now bring like a couple of AX10s, like a battery operated, like what do you say, like it's not is it a Fresnel? But it's like, what do you call it? Is it a specular light? Like a very directional light?
Oh
And then a
yeah,
couple
okay. Yeah, like a
of,
hard source.
yeah, a hard source, and so two battery operated hard sources and two stereo bulbs. So like on each Scout, we could just play for 5 minutes,
Oh,
and
smart.
so we did like on the first Scout that we had a few, and we put them on the roof, and they had like a nice throw where, because of the spotted nature of the bulb, they wouldn't like burn out the first sand they hit, and they would actually throw pretty far. So we had like 40 of those in the end, covering kilo not a mile, but a kilometer of the beach. And then, because you only look straight into a couple of those, we could dim them down, but everything else you could go to 100% and they would do the sand, and then we would extend closer the camera with like asteras and light mats and such.
Oh,
And
so that's so we're getting flared by one that's at 100 on the far left there for that moment, but
kind
the
of,
other
yeah,
ones are down, and
right,
that's what's giving us the line of sand beyond the umbrellas.
right. Because if if we hadn't put our lights, it would just you'd only see the I guess, the spark, the circular lights that weren't
Bokeh.
ours, and
Yeah.
we'd just be in the black here. So it's based on that. And then we had a few like brutes as well throwing extra, like this shot here. But here we have hidden Asteris behind all the you can see it clearly on
Oh,
the
the
green.
umbrellas.
Yeah, but just to like make sure the color
Yeah,
comes out. And
that's
yeah,
smart.
so that was the idea.
That's really
Um
smart. Like, and I also love now the guy in the suit on the right there is he being lit by
mhm.
his phone or did you hand him something?
No, I think he has some. He clearly has like probably a light mat or something picking up from the right side.
Yeah, that's
Is it?
great.
Oh no, sorry. Corey is lit by his phone. I thought you meant the bodyguard on the far right.
Oh, no,
Is
no, yeah, the yeah.
something. Um, but yeah, I mean, and even we pushed it a stop here, and I shot like almost wide open
Mhm.
still to get because we couldn't then light the hotel at night because we'd wake everybody up.
Right.
So we had to base it as much on whatever we could squeeze out of the existing practicals, and then the line in this shot, and I'm glad you're holding this frame. Like I would say, all the lights that you see on the is it like the gutter or like
Yep.
where
The
the
roof line,
warm
like yeah, the
roof.
gutter.
Those are our lights, and
Yeah.
they're doing a lot of the lighting, I would
Oh,
say.
it's great.
So,
And were all
but
the
the fact that
umbrellas there? Did you place them? Because it really helps with that midground.
the umbrellas is a part of the Deauville, charm. So that's
Cool.
something that Joachim really wanted to catch as well,
Yeah.
and yeah. But I like the idea that it it also wanted to remind us a little of the heydays of cinema. So I feel like, anyway, I'm happy with the sequence here.
Yeah, there's this thing where you really sense Gustav as kind of remembering what it was like to be a young person with
Mhm.
other young filmmakers in this place. And then
Right,
he's realizing he wants to just get Rachel away from her handlers and team because those are the two filmmakers amongst the group, kind of.
right, right.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, so I guess you see like where the
Yeah. Look,
beach stops and the boardwalk is like all those little blue dots are the AX tens or nines. AX.
oh my gosh, what a prereg. It's smart.
Yeah,
It's so smart to make it all feel like, no, they're just the architectural lights that are there. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's really smart.
Yeah, that's kind of the base for everything, and then we try to hide like extra pushes between buildings, and of course brought in like softer lights once we got into close-ups.
Those yellow
Um,
dots are the kind of bigger things in between there's like a Lux 12
Nanlux 2400, yeah, yeah,
on the far right there.
exactly,
You've got a grouping kind of off of your frame left when you're looking back at the beach.
yeah,
Yeah, that's smart. That's really cool.
yeah. And then the Cook S5, the we used on Worst Person as well, has like they're fairly new, but they still have a little bit of warmth and charm. Like so, when the highlights bloom, they have like a warmish uh, on the edges,
Yeah.
you, the aberration or the fringe, like it just how it bleeds is beautiful on these cooks, and that was something that Joachim really wanted, like to feel like old cinema, like a moment of like heyday of cinema, right?
Oh, so did you not use those lenses for the whole shoot? You just used them for
We did,
okay.
but that was like I remember Scott like we have to like this is where they'll shine.
Right. This is the scene where they'll pay off.
Maybe this is a good way to transition into talking about then the past, because yeah, I mean so the apart from shooting like Gustav, we also wanted to tell the story about the house and generational trauma,
Yeah.
and since the house was almost as old as cinema itself, we're making a film about a filmmaker. It was it was too obvious not to try to pursue sort of like a parallel with how we depict the house in film history. So we started with black and white, imitated hand crank. We couldn't get the actual hand crank, so we would have to do it with
Oh, an
like
RCU that you
laser crank.
didn't
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And for grain, I chose to shoot just the first black and white on 16 with an old zoom that really fell apart. So it had a nice charm. And then we tried to like follow through, the different eras which lenses would fit the decades and
Yeah.
from film. And of course you can try leaning more on, you know, the realistic, naturalistic ways. Like we didn't want to go into Technicolor land because that would just, you know, take us away from.
Well, it also doesn't feel like I feel like if you think of the world as having hotspots of color palettes, right? Like different countries embraced color in different ways at different times. I do feel like I don't think of I think much more Tarkovsky than I do Technicolor, right? Like,
All right.
and I
Yeah.
feel like well, we should watch that
Sure.
second house montage because it has a lot of what you're talking about and the control of color palettes and also the grain and lack of grain
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
something you're very talented at is and I adore is there's several moments and there's a quote in the movie about the shadows, but there's several moments where you really get the sense of either you saw actual sunlight doing something great or you mimicked that like sun breaking through clouds so well that I just thought you were grabbing it. But like the pattern that's on the wall, there, I don't know. I think you have a very wonderful sense of the hard and soft of it all.
Right. Well, thank you for noticing. And I said in the beginning, like we can't on stage because it was in the script already. There's like very light specific notes in the script. There
Oh,
was even
cool.
some light changes where there's only one left in the film, but where like the sun goes behind a cloud. But
Mhm.
but like how Gustav was, really admiring, the sun going through the old glass and, was there in the script and knowing how hard that's the hardest thing to
I love
replicate.
this palette here for these
No, I
shots.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also, we have to shout out to Julian Allery, who's I say he's done all of Joachim's films, also the ones with Jakob, but he's really a genius and this whole sequence was like, it probably was a couple of days out of, our 2 week color grading, just to
Right.
find, because like going for, time period and also doing era correct lenses is, I love it coming straight out of Apprentice where we really mimicked 70s and 80s archive footage and cameras. I really like this game and I think it adds a lot, but it also could easily become cheesy or a filter that you didn't need. So Julian and Joachim, who's there every day for color timing, is they have a big part of succeeding with this montage.
There's this beautiful like in that section leading up to this, you if you are a cinematographer looking at it, you can see um which how smartly you and the colorist are using the tones and the shadows to help you transition across these leaps in time. So
Mhm.
there's a little like blue purple in the shadows in the 40s that then you drag into the next shots after, and then you can bleed it out
Right.
into the more, wondrous child moments. It's
Right.
really beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
but you
I
also
got to
feel
watch
like,
it.
right, yeah, on the big screen, hopefully even more so. But like, I like the idea that, we've suddenly we're back into present time with Gustav, who's thinking back, and then we're back into like
That
and
shot I think and is that before? I'm trying to remember if that's before or after the amazing sequence with all their faces.
this is before. But it
Yeah.
was from the same session, I think, where we did those faces.
Yeah. But it's once again, you're dropping a little, I think of it as they're like little threads that you punch through time to connect different parts of the film, right? And I feel like that moment in this montage is one of those. It's like you're I can feel the needle going through the film and the thread it's gonna pay off later and it goes by and it makes and it feels right, but it is really different than everything else. But
Mhm.
then it pays off later, which I it's really great.
There was a transition from the 50s to the 60s,
Yeah.
which is very like we agreed, even if we could have afforded and prioritized, some of these transitions to be done on the motion control, we really liked Age of Innocence,
Mm.
how kind of a lack of a more poetic work, like a crude transition, or at least not trying again the perfect transition where it's more like, you get the gist of it. Like we're doing like a double exposing and kind of keeping the same frame, but it wasn't like for perfection. It was more like the feeling. And
Yeah, and it works great because of
uh,
that, you know.
there's in the first montage, there's a few of those as well.
Well, to me, that's again, that's that sense of there's some kind of truth in the sense of the end of, you know, it's not an imperfection because it's correct for the story, is how simple
Mhm.
that is in my mind. So,
And so these are like shot on 4 different days, right? Where they have to readdress the house. And so
right.
it's kind of like, like ultraviolet markers, to find of kind of, because we're rolling on the floor. So
So
it's
you're using the that trick that prop folks use. If a student is watching and doesn't know what we're talking about, you can use UV markers that are invisible, but then when you shine a black light on them, you see exactly. And so prop folks use that all the time to reset stuff on scenes. You're using that to reset track and things.
right. Yeah. Just because we were
That's
rolling
awesome.
on the floor and we do it days apart to get night and day and
Right.
season.
You
Yeah.
come back and there's like five road maps all on top of each other in UV light on the
Yeah,
floor.
it's like a
Like,
whole
oh
like
no.
hidden map. No, you said something about the sun, which I'd love to talk about a
Yeah.
little more. Because I really like knowing. So we had to, since we were shooting the final scene of Gustav's film on stage, Jürgen, our brilliant production designer, brought up like, with all the seasons, with all the decades, and all the different dressings we have to do, there's no way we can solve it all on location. So why don't we extend the studio build some and do, you know, the past of the house on studio? It also gave him time to like and do the real paneling and paints and wallpapers and such. So we apart from the theater, I don't know if we ever were 2 days in a row the same location. So it's in and out every day of the house. Even on stage, we would come in, shoot one day, leave, they would redress for, some days and we would come back while doing other stuff. But I said like the sunlight that Gustav as a child is enjoying, like there's no way we're going to be able to recreate that on a short throw with a Fresnel. So they would bring some, like they would dress like, a square meter in the house sometimes for us. And then we would go in the weekends. Like we have like Saturday Skeleton Crew, which was like a grip, focus puller, Joachim and me and Lars Thomas, the producer, first AD, and Attila, and we would just go and Hedda. So we'd be like a tiny crew and just pick little details like wind, catching the curtain, or like, we had one guy where there was the rain and that sun dapple thing was like the real sun through rain, which I think we were supposed to shoot the rain, and then the rain was only so good, and we were like, "Hey, look what it's doing
Look
to
at
the
this
sun,
behind us.
reflecting from that window over there." Like, shoot, shoot, shoot. So,
Real
and
camera.
exactly. No, there's a lot of that, and but like prioritizing, like, and I
So
think
smart.
Jürgen, I was with him at Marsh recently, and he was like, "But yeah, the house becomes a character, but also because we're really like pointing at it in the beginning, and that pointing was very important to Joachim so much that we all agreed that we had to do like some extra footage of the house. So we took a couple of Saturdays doing those shots.
Those sound like fabulous days. Those sound like
It is
really
great.
wonderful days.
Yeah,
Like, what are you here to get? Beautiful stuff of
exactly.
the real world,
And
which
just
is
like those tracking shots that you would never like allow yourself to take time doing on a shoot where you have actors standing by, but it's just like, and that's yeah, that's it was just great. And then reacting to, because so a whole other thing, I don't know if we have time to touch, is like shooting in like so north on the globe,
oh, right,
which
yeah.
offers like beautiful, almost like we never got into 360 sun, but we're not that high up, but it really offers a nice low sun in the summer, but it's great for nature. But when you're in a house, it's actually mainly trouble if you have to shoot a 5-page scene,
Oh, right.
over a couple of days, because it not only is it like which rooms do you have to take the sun away from, but it's also like the bounce, not just from glass, but also like whole like stone facades. It really changes the room. And
Neighboring
then
houses are suddenly filling you like with a 20 by 40 of hot.
exactly. And foliage, suddenly you have, and Joachim is really a fan of white walls and white t-shirts, and so a green bush suddenly lit, it looks like a green screen spill coming all over set. So there's a the 13 windows that I realized that we had on the main floor was the biggest challenge in the house to control. And
And you're bouncing from the real house to a reconstructed sections.
yeah, but I mean, very few times were we in the same moment in time where
Right,
we
right,
had
right. Okay.
but it's more like, the scene with the vase where Rachel Kemp comes that you did were shot over 2 or 3 days, but at least day one and two were more than a month apart because
Oh,
Rachel wasn't starting until later, and so footage was almost dead when they arrived. I mean, but
wow.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, and it's, it was I think, I'm not sure, so I don't know if we can quote me for this, but I think it was one of the more expensive films ever made in Norway. So it's a big production, and a lot of it, of course, goes to design, but also having shooting time is a big priority for Joachim, like, which is amazing, which is what you want, like to protect the performance, but it also means there's not a lot of scenes where you could just like play it in natural light because
Right.
continuity would, you know, yeah.
Right. Because the
You,
scene might only be a
that's
couple of
cool.
minutes, but you're doing it over days.
Yeah.
Um, and that's it's funny, that's the transition into like you've transitioned into Hitchcock territory, but you're trying to feel like it's not as controlled as a Hitchcock film,
Mhm.
where
What do you
where
mean with the transition to Hitchcock?
the idea being that like if you're shooting something in a location over a couple days, now you kind of can't roll like you did on the weekends. You can't roll with what's there because you're not going to get it done so fast that the 2 hour window where the light's perfect in the room is when you're going to get the shot. So I always feel there's this weird gap from there are indie films that look really amazing, and then there are bigger budget films that look really amazing. And in between those is that terrifying zone of like, well, we have enough time to get really screwed by the natural light, but not enough budget to fully control it. So it's like, good luck.
Yes, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. One thing is, all the natural daylight, but also just practicals. Joachim really was adamant about like find good practicals. Like and some of the scenes in the second or the last third of the film where, his producer tells him it's your film, you have to do it, and then Rachel comes and she basically tells him she can't do the film. Both those two scenes were just lit by one practical each that we chose,
That's
and there was
great.
really nothing added. And so we tested that on 35 just to see how it looks on camera when it's exposing right for the faces. And I mean, I love that as well. Some of the lightings are super complicated, like every screen second or minute took this much effort on the lighting side, and then some of them is just that and just
Yeah.
that. And
And it's one thing in the right place and it works.
right.
Uh,
So, oh no, no, I remember. Like, I think what Joachim is really good at is this mix of something that feels just caught and something controlled. and
Yeah.
it never leans too much on one side because you like in without throwing you off balance, it just balances it between, something controlled and sometimes formal into something that is absolutely real, which also is, I guess echoed in the lighting, the fact that we actually go and hunt for the beautiful naturalistic moments, right?
Yeah. It's a
Mm.
deft hand. Like um you sense in watching the film that it's a deft touch. And then if you know anything about filmmaking, you know it can't just be one person who has that touch. There has to be a whole team of people who are all down for those choices, those, and none of them being too obvious and none of them being, um, for lack of a better word, the easiest way to do it, but just what's the correct thing. And if the correct thing's one bulb in the right place, then that's the correct thing. And if it's, we don't have the clip here, but talk a little bit about the lighting for the big final when we reveal the final oneer that's
Right.
in the movie on stage.
Right. Oh, yeah. And then there's also, I guess, for all the colleagues that might be, uh, listening or watching here, is I guess there's the side character of Petter, like his DP friend. You
Yeah.
know, the,
Oh my God.
so
I
like
felt
one
so
thing is
bad.
imitating his style, the whole thing of like when he has to go and realize that he probably is not the right cat for the next film,
Yeah.
is a heartbreaking moment and a moment that I fear is gonna come, sometime for me in my career. But then the beauty of him actually sitting in the chair and they found a way because the new guy wasn't right for Gustav. Like, he needed
Yeah.
his own collaborator. I think
No,
that's
it's to me that's one of the most pleasing arcs of the whole film for all obvious reasons.
right.
We want to never age out of it. I feel like uh most filmmakers will, they're like, "Oh, well, hopefully I'll just collapse on set one day and that'll be the end."
Right.
Like I'll just be working until I'm not.
Right. And then so I guess the lighting of that scene wanted to stand out a little, like wanted to have like a little more artifice than what we've pursued in the film so far. Maybe Peter Light a little more old schoolish, and then also, of course, the blue screen is showing at a certain deliberate point, but and then there's the fact that uh, we decided to have ceilings on all
Right.
sets, so like it was tempting to go like, oh, maybe he lights from what do you the
Right.
edge of the set, but we kind of locked in. So yeah, so we had to throw in like some sun heads to actually bounce up and save moments where we couldn't have any lights inside. It was everything was lit from outside for that.
Yeah. That fictional DP is very good too.
Well, I thank him when I see him.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah, that was great, and that was one of our. Being on stage there was, apart from one more day in the house with the skeleton unit, that was the end of the shoot. Like we ended with,
Wow.
doing that. We rehearsed it the day before, so like technically we were ready. It was a hard, like Christian, my dolly grip, really like did that well. I don't remember that we did any like takes, like we did less than 10 takes on that scene, and
Wow.
I don't remember, technically, being causing any retakes. So that was a proud moment for both him and me, and also, and then going straight outside, filming, father and daughter, and then pulling away, and like it was kind of like
Oh,
we
you did
took
it in that
them
order too.
apart.
So
Yeah, I think we did that audio.
that look on the actors' faces is very real.
Yeah,
Because it's a very all of us who form these families that we get very, very tight with and then don't see for 2 years, or then you might run into like a grip that you loved working with 10 years later on some other job, and you have this big like, oh my God, it's you kind of,
right, right,
moment.
right,
Um, which I love those moments, but they're also belie the fact that you kind of can't stay in touch with everyone the whole time because you're going to go off to some other new family. And the looks that they're giving each other at the end are really perfect. They're that mix of the true family connecting and then but that sense of this knowing this moment is fleeting in a way. It's really beautiful. Well, it makes sense that you guys did it last, and that's why it lands so well. That and the fact you have great actors.
Very much. So yeah, I'd love to just do a little shout out. We did have on the theater, we had Paul Ulvik, who is a very talented Norwegian DP, and
Oh,
he would do like additional camera for us. He shot for Paul Greengrass since July 22nd.
oh wow.
The the what do you call it? The Breivik, Anders Breivik, the terrorist attack they had. So anyway, Paul is a good friend, and he was available to help us out in the theater and did some of those great theater shots. And Ola, Robin, Mats, and Christopher, the camera crew, was also the same team from Worst Person. So there's a whole family. There's a priority of super skilled, the best of the best up on that side of the globe, and also just warm human beings that just you know add to that set atmosphere that we want to create for the
Yeah,
actors.
it's
And
really
then I want to, I mean, I'd love to talk about Stellan as a grandfather to the whole film as well. Like he would never leave set. He like is a true, that's where he belongs. He sits in an apple box between takes, and he would, give me and some tips on lighting and how to lay tracks sometimes, but all with love. And he would, I heard that he even reduced his salary so that we could have,
oh wow.
a great lunch, all of that, all of us. And yeah, so it really was like a beautiful film family experience. Most of family members came from the film before, but yeah, yeah, I feel, and that's the thing with Joachim, is super ambitious, but it's all done with love and friends. I feel like,
It's
and
really
so, and it was hard for me to be away for 8 months from my family, but he. Even when we had very little time, and he still saw me, and he he I, as a human being, would always come first before the work we had to do. I
oh
felt
how
like there,
great.
yeah, so it's yeah, really a beautiful friendship and collaboration, and yeah.
That's beautiful. I always love asking fellow filmmakers these two questions at the end, and one is, what would you tell like your younger self, like your early, just starting self that you know now? Is there something you'd let your younger self know?
Yeah. um well, I guess slowly I've been realizing that no one can do you better than yourself.
Mm.
And I think in film school, I remember we were told, the six of us, the six cinematography students that were allowed in every second year, that two of you will probably not be doing this in 10 years. And oh, like this, like it was so part of the schooling that this was competition. And so it, I mean, that's probably my whole upbringing as well, but like just realizing there's no competition, like there's like, and a lot of it in the beginning is of course like copying all the DBs that I looked up to, but then realizing that that's got to stop at some point, because you realize that there's yeah, as you find yourself both in life outside of film, but also through the work, like what kind of films are for me, like what, like the films that I thought was right for me. I really feel like with Joachim's films here, like I've really this is where I think I belong, in these types of films. And like it's both, it's the right size for me. Like I don't need to go bigger or anything, like, because
Oh no, it sounds beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
for me, like I haven't really done big stuff, but what's key for me is to keep a feeling of myself and everyone. I play a I not play like I empathy is one of my strongest connection, and that it goes of course to the performance, but everybody on crew, like I really have I want to feel that everyone is safe, and we make this on, of course, professional skill, and everybody's like putting, that period of their life into the film. But underneath that needs to be love and friendship. And so yeah, a film bigger than that, I worry that that would not be prioritized. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
you would
haven't
find a
tried.
way. I think
Yeah.
um, if it was Joachim and you going to something bigger, I just know that the way you are as filmmakers, it sounds you would find a way to make that work.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I think um that's really
Or at least,
important.
I mean, I guess the back to the advice to my younger self or younger DPs is like, uh, the more you in every possible decision and choice you make, really think twice and really let it go through yourself in what you want, what feels right, what you're trying to achieve, and whether it's, yeah, I just like really like the more you feel yourself in it, I think yeah, the clearer things are. Like, I feel like it's been a little diffused for me in a chase of something that actually wasn't looking inwards.
Well, yeah, and that's hard not to get into.
I think these films have they're on that knife's edge of, challenging enough, but also like me. And
Right.
there's room for me, and like I don't have to think that I have to do something, outside of it. It's just like, yeah,
You bringing your honest self to it only helps the project, right? Like, and that's been invited and folded in at the story level, and no, it's really wonderful. And is there something that you find that you're really interested in now that you weren't even aware of as a young filmmaker? Is there any aspect of this whole process that is fascinating you now that seems kind of new only based on your experience of
yeah. I
filmmaking?
think I came into, so I came into it, as an actor and performing in front of the lens, but then the whole technical and the craft and the how expressive, camera angles and lighting could be. And yeah, I don't know, like got um distracted maybe from the technical side of it, the gear, the machines, which I still love as a part of, like I love the mix of science and poetry or soul, or but I think yeah, just feeling like really it's like I really feel like I no longer shoot as the cameraman. I shoot as Casper. Like it's
Yeah.
me. And it's for the values of as a human being, not as a technician or somebody who's trying to achieve something.
Well, Casper, thank you so much for sharing all of this process and the insight on the making of this really beautiful film. I really appreciate it.
I would love if there's anybody out there who is interested. Like I'm, I guess easily reachable on Instagram, and I find I don't know what I'm unleashing, but it's so far like it's been absolutely doable with the communication between fellow DPs. But I'm very open to talking more of if people have questions outside.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
To
I mean,
just reach out, and I really find that that's part of the losing the whole idea of competition, and there's nobody who can do you as you, and being reminded of that. I was just in Poland for Kamraj, and there you have such a rare fellowship, or like between cinematographers, where it's every like competition feels, even though there are awards at the end of the thing, throughout the festival, it's just so incredible how transparent and open and everything is. So I really Yeah, I can only applaud to that, and however I can contribute to continuing that outside of what the festival gives in our community. Yeah.
I think it's really important. Some of my happiest early memories of even becoming aware of the ASC, we're going to open houses and
Mhm.
getting asked questions. I remember Roger came up and asked me a question about shooting Sunshine State, and I was starting to answer him, and all these other huge DPs that I all admired were gathering around to hear what film stock I had used. And then Jill, my wife, called, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to take this." And I picked up the phone, and someone said, "Oh, he's not going to tell us." Like they were so like, "Ah," and I was like, "I have to go, honey, and I gotta go." And and then I told them, and then the conversation immediately turned to like how different people were shooting AGFA and all the like. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful collection of artists who
Mhm.
have no problem telling you exactly how they did anything you want to ask them." And I agree. I think that's important for us to do because the only way we let younger generations know the importance of cinematography is by sharing as much of it as we can. Um, and no one can be you. And that's, there endeth the competition, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, if you're
Exactly.
all your true selves, you can only help each other out. So what's your, if you want to tell us all what your Instagram is,
It's just Kasper Tuxen at,
easy enough.
my, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll follow you as soon as we get off of this.
Likewise.
It was really lovely meeting you and hanging out. I really appreciate you taking the time, and may the commercial shoot go well and whatever you're up to next, I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.